welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host. We were last discussing what if he or she becomes abusive. We covered briefly the racial and cultural differences as referenced by Lundy Bancroft's wonderful book, Why Does He Do That? Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. And then we move on to the next part, some specific cultural excuses and justifications for abusive behavior. Bancroft tells us certain culturally specific rationalizations used by abusive men can be particularly confusing to women. For example, Bancroft finds it fairly common for an abusive man of color to believe that the racial discrimination he's had to face in his entire life excuses any mistreatment that he may bring upon his partner. If she complains to him that he's abusing her, he may accuse her of betraying him as a man of color, saying that you're siding with the white culture that has already torn him down so much. Because racism does remain a harsh reality, he may succeed in making you feel guilty for criticizing him or for trying to leave him. If your background is the same as his, he applies a double standard for racial solidarity. In his mind, he's not betraying his racial group, even though he's abusing a lady of color, yet he considers her disloyal when she complains of his treatment or denounces him. He's got reality turned around backwards. The one who's betraying solidarity is him. Bancroft says he's also had a few dozen clients over the years who belong to fundamentalist religious groups, usually Christian or Islamic fundamentalists or Orthodox Judaic. He says that abusive men from those groups tend to openly espouse a system in which ladies have next to no rights, and a man is entitled to be the unquestioned ruler of the home. To make matters worse, these religious groups have greatly increased their political power around the globe over the past 2 decades. He gives a case in point. Consider the growing influence of Christian fundamentalism in the United States. Ladies who live within these religious groups may feel especially trapped by abuse, since their resistance to domination is likely to be seen as evil, and the surrounding community may support or even revere the abuser. Some of his African American clients claim that black ladies are too tough to abuse, and he may even claim to be the victim of his ladies' violence. This claim is sometimes accompanied by descriptions of the black family as matriarchal or female-dominated. These exaggerations of cultural differences serve to cover up the fact that according to the latest U.S. statistics, African American ladies are abused at roughly the same rate as white women. It's true in his experience that black ladies sometimes fight back more than the white ones against a physically violent abuser, even though many white ladies do fight back as well, but they don't come out any less injured, frightened, or controlled. Finally, men of some tribal cultures develop an abusive behavior after they have extensive contact with modern societies for the first time. Tribal ladies have sometimes reported, for example, that when a TV came to their geographic areas, domestic violence came with it. As their men began to learn the violent and male-dominated attitudes that characterize much of what's in the modern television culture, the tribal man thus may justify his abusiveness in terms of progress and moving into the mainstream, linking his ridicule of his partner to disparaging the overall tribal way of life, though some do the opposite, fake claiming that tradition supports their oppressive behaviors. Bancroft tells us now that he's focused here on cultural differences and similarities among abusive men. There's another situation in which race and culture are very important to abuse. When the abuser is white American or Caucasian, but his partner's a woman of color or an immigrant, the abuser in such a relationship tends to use racism as an additional tactic to insult and control the partner. Ladies of color who have white abusers can face considerable bias from police, courts, child protective services. Now, we move to the next topic on the same subject, is the same-sex gay abuser. Although most abused people are male and most abused partners are female, the reasons for this lopsided picture are social and not biological. ladies sometimes abuse their lesbian partners, and men may be abused by their gay partners. The thinking that drives the behavior of lesbian and gay male abusers largely follows the patterns we've already been examining. While it's true that some justifications used by heterosexual male abusers are not available to the queer or lesbian abuser, such as,
"I have the right to rule over you because I'm the man and you're the woman,"
the same-sex abuser replaces these with others that can be as powerful. The abused lesbian or gay man, therefore, can get as badly ensnarled as the straight woman. First, let's look at some of the things the same-sex abuser can't do as easily. And he is going to call the abuser she. She won't be able to use sex role expectations that are based on cultural or religious rules as easily as the straight male abuser can. She doesn't have as many social power advantages as a man who is involved with a woman does. The straight male abuser can take advantage in multiple ways of the fact that we'll still live in a man's world, despite recent societal changes. She may not be able to use size and strength to intimidate as easily as most straight male abusers do. In fact, she may be smaller or appear to be less tough than her partner. The same-sex abuser compensates for these gaps in several ways, and he's going to give you a few examples. Number one, she may have an even deeper conviction than the straight male abuser that she couldn't possibly be abusive no matter how cruel or even violent she gets, because abuse doesn't happen in same-sex relationships. She may sound so sure of herself on this that she is able to convince her abused partner that what's happening is just normal. Number two, she uses her partner's homosexuality against her. When she's angry, she may threaten to tell her partner's parents about their relationship, or to call up her place of work and out her, which could cause her to lose her job. If she's violent, she may tell the partner, "You think the police or courts are going to help you if they know that you're a lesbian?" The gay male abuser may tell the partner, "The police are just going to laugh at you when you tell them you're scared. They'll tell you to act like a man." The lesbian or gay male who's involved with a violent or threatening abusive person does genuinely face discrimination from the police and the courts. And the abusive person knows this. In many states, for example, an abused person cannot get a restraining order to keep an abusive person away if it's the same gender. Number three, the same-sex abuser may get even more mileage out of playing the victim than the straight male abuser does. When a straight man goes around claiming a lady's abusing him, he's many times met with considerable skepticism. As well he should. But when we look at two people of the same gender, how are we to tell which one's the abusive one? A quick glance won't give you the answer. The result is that same-sex abuser can often convince people around her, and sometimes even her own partner, that she's the one who's being abused. When lesbians or queer men go to agencies for help with relationship abuse, it's not unheard of for the abuser to say that she's the victim and the victim to say that she's the abuser. Sometimes the abuser succeeds in getting support and sympathy for quite a while before service providers catch on to the fact that they're helping the wrong person. Number four, the abusive person can sometimes get her wider community to be silent about the abuse because everybody is already struggling with the negative social images of being queer, lesbian. Many lesbians and gay men feel, quite understandably, that awareness of abuse in same-sex relationships will be used by bigoted people as an excuse for further discrimination of their kind. And there's really no question that bigots will do exactly that. But silence is not the answer either, since it isolates and abandons abused people and allows these abusers to go on steamrolling forward over the lives of their partners. The same-sex abuser may have had extremely tough life, and she may feel that anybody who labels her as abusive is being unfair, given what she's gone through. She may have been banished from her family or home because of her lifestyle choice, as they call it, barred from progressing in her career, or filled with secret shame during adolescence. People in her social groups may have gone through similar trials and thus feel an instant sympathy for all of her little excuses. But non-abusive lesbians and queer men have also endured oppressive experiences because of their sexuality. Same-sex abusers, like straight male abusers, seize any excuse they can to absolve themselves of responsibility for their actions and to elicit sympathy. Ultimately, the thinking and actions of lesbian and gay male abusers are more similar to than different from those of other abusers. Later on, when we explore the social roots of abusiveness, it will become clear why all abusers follow more or less the same template. He gives you some key points to remember. For the most part, an abusive man uses verbally aggressive tactics in an argument to discredit your statements and to silence you. In short, he wants to avoid having to deal seriously with what your perspective is of the conflict. Arguments that spin out of control for no reason actually are being used by the abusive man to achieve certain goals, although he may not always be conscious of this. His actions and statements make far more sense than they appear to. An abusive man's good periods are an important and integrated aspect of his abuse, not something separate from it. Abusive men find abusiveness rewarding. The privileged position they gain is central reason for their reluctance to alter their behavior. Abusive men tend to be happy only when everything in the relationship's going on their terms. This is a major reason for the severe mood swings they so often exhibit from day to day. Violence is not just punches and slaps. It's anything that puts you in physical fear or that uses your baddie to control you. The styles of abusers vary by race, nationality, and orientation. However, the commonalities far outweigh their differences. The turbulence, insecurity, and fear that your partner causes in daily life can make it hard to recognize its pattern of attitudes and behaviors. By taking a mental step back, you may start to see recurring things. Be cautious and seek out assistance. You don't deserve to live like this, and you don't have to. Try to block his words out of your mind and believe in yourself. You can do it.
I am the narcopath.
The truth is, once you found out about the 14-year-old boy that I was playing with, I couldn't risk that getting out. So, little did you know, when your sister didn't act too interested in your complaints about me, well, there's a good reason for it. I told her I accidentally stumbled across your billfolds. I happened to find a bunch of 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old nude boys. And that freaked her out. I knew it would. She's so conservative. I'm so good. But anyway, that's why she didn't believe you or even give you any kind of sympathy, because she was convinced you had naked 14 and 13-year-old boys in your wallet. And she bought it. I'm glad we're through, because I'm on a new project now. Good luck to you.
I just want to tell you, first off, God hates fags. That's right. God hates fags. I'm so glad that I became a lesbian, so I don't have to worry about being hated by God. After all, I'm the only God in this world.
Don't give me your church preaching sermons. The Bible says nothing about being lesbian. Or transgendered lesbian, for that matter. So, take your religion and shove it.
Look, honey, I've received the reports you gave the managers about our little mentoring session. I don't know where you came up with such a negative attitude. I was simply there to encourage you to do the best in your career. However, I happened to be sleeping with the boss, so your complaint has been put down the disposal. Give it up. You'll never be as pretty as me.
Besides, I'm sleeping with your husband.